I'd like to ask my colleague what is meant by Article 1 of the Constitution, if he could clarify that for us. No one who supports my amendment, certainly not I, has any problem, sir, with the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment, particularly the Equal Protection Clause, or with Article 1 of the Constitution, I assure you. I also, however, would note, and I'm sure the gentleman would appreciate, that many times throughout American history, presidents under their authority under the Constitution have acted in the area of workplace discrimination, particularly in the executive branch. For example, would the gentleman oppose President Truman's action to integrate the armed services? Perhaps he would like that order to be circumscribed in some way, if he thinks that violates Article 1 of the Constitution, Article 14 of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, or the First Amendment to the Constitution. In other words, the president has throughout American history, under his constitutional authority, taken actions to widen the circle of opportunity and to end discrimination in the executive branch. Nothing in my amendment is in any way at odds with the Constitution of the United States or the amendments thereto. But it should not be allowed to go unchallenged on the floor of this House to suggest that President Obama, in his executive action in 2014, ran afoul of any of those things either. Indeed, I'm unaware of any legal challenge to the president's action in those executive orders of 2014. It's pretty clear to me that if there was something illegal or unconstitutional about them, there would have been a challenge. I don't think anybody seriously contests the president's authority to do what he did in 2014, and many Americans welcome it as one of the signature equal protection actions by a commander-in-chief or by a president of the United States. So far from being concerned about reconciling our activities with the Constitution, we believe they are perfectly consistent. And therefore, I would ask the gentleman if he would be willing to also include, since we're so fond of the Constitution, Article 2 of the Constitution, which specifies the powers of the president. If the gentleman would answer that question. In other words, if we're so fond of the Constitution, what do you say we follow the whole thing, sir, including the Civil War amendments, including some of the things about equal protection, due process? You might have heard of something about that. We had a little dispute about that in the mid-19th century. What do you say we abide by the whole Constitution? The part that tries to make it more progressive, more inclusive, of people like me, of people of color, of women, of people who were shut out when it was written. How about we include the whole Constitution? Can we do that?
The gentleman will address his comments to the
Mr. Speaker, how about we include the whole Constitution? Can we do that?
Gentleman will continue.
Hearing no objection, I assume we're including the entire Constitution, including the powers of the President under Article 2. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time. Well, then let me just say again, the point of today's vote is to redo a mistake that was made in this House. But of course, it wasn't really a mistake, was it? It was an effort to change the outcome of a bipartisan majority supporting an amendment to end discrimination in federal contracting. So today, what we're doing is getting a second bite at that apple, giving members a chance to vote their conscience, to do the right thing, free from any pressure, free from any vote swapping or switching, free from a clock being held open long after it should have closed. The American people want to know if their government's on the level. So let's have this vote on the level. We know there is a bipartisan majority for equality in this House, and if allowed a fair vote, we know what the outcome will be. And I look forward to that vote, Mr. Speaker, and I would reserve the balance of my time. Mr. Speaker, I want to make it perfectly clear that we stand here servants of the Constitution, all of us. And all of the actions we take here are subject to that beautiful document as amended. And so there is nothing about the gentleman's amendment to the extent that it simply restates what is obvious, which is that all of our actions are subject to the Constitution that we would object to. And my only point is simply that we need to read it as a whole document. We don't need to read anything into it. We can read the text. We can understand the history of the text. We can understand the global and expansive nature of the language written into the Constitution after the searing experience of the Civil War, around equal protection, around due process. We don't fear the Constitution. We welcome it. We embrace it. We claim it as our own when we come to this floor and ask that the circle of opportunity be widened for others who have been excluded before. We think that's in the best tradition of the American Constitution. We believe the Constitution provides a series of promises that, as King said, it's a promissory note, and that a check was written, we're coming to cash it, that we'll all be treated equally, that we'll all be treated fairly, that we all count, regardless of who we love, regardless of the color of our skin, whether we walk in or roll in. We believe we all count. And we believe that the Constitution enshrines those values in the most beautiful way in all of human history. So far from being concerned in any way by the gentleman's amendment, we welcome it. But let it not detract from the fact that what happened in this House was an effort to enshrine and rationalize discrimination under federal law. And then despite the success we had in defeating that with a bipartisan majority, there were those here who wanted to perpetuate discrimination at the expense of equality. That is inconsistent with the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, and let that be the final word on this.